honest, man, I wish I had a mentor. I mean, I'll tell you for free. Someone who mentored me on financial management, all the monies I was making and the hiring I was doing, he would have properly guided me. That would have been important. I would have been richer for it now. I would have probably managed relationships. I was very bold then. I mean, I was negotiating house in BI to leave when I get married. I was doing some crazy stuff because I was saving money. But I didn't know that that's business money. That's not your money, So if I had a mentor who had guided me, and I didn't even know I needed a mentor. So it is a very funny situation when you don't know, you don't know. It's a dangerous point to be.
My father told me life is not a bit.
This is Origins Africa podcast, where we explore the origin stories of people who have made and are making their dreams come true, asking the what, the when, the how, and the why. I'm Osheye, and on this episode, the concluding part of our chat with Emmanuel Tarfa, we explore Emmanuel's rise from the ashes following the death of his first life in business, his mission to replicate himself into 1 million youth, as well as his general life lessons and habits. Emmanuel is a partner and co-founder at Enzo Krypton Company Limited. On the last episode, we explored Emmanuel Tarfa's first life in business, which covered him having his first pop at the age of 12, studying economics at the University of Abuja, and starting conceptual initiatives and youth development. We also talked about the serendipitous meet Emmanuel had with Chukwuka, which became the biggest blessing of his life, as well as the entrepreneurship mistake he made twice, which led to a dark period in his life. In Emmanuel's words, he literally came to a halt.
So I eventually crashed in that first life when, I became over-leveraged. So, you borrowed money to pay salaries and you didn't understand the dynamics, you're not paying attention to your numbers. And then, well, I never told anybody this, and then suddenly at that period of crisis, that was when I now got married. Can you imagine? So everything I struggled. So I literally came to a halt. Even the car I had, I lost it because I parked it for exchange for collateral, and cut the story short. So I went through my own dark moment.
So what do you do when you're back at ground zero a second time? Not once, but 2 times, and for repeating the same mistake, poor financial management. Once they say is a mistake, twice, and it's already becoming a pattern. How do you correct that pattern? How do you start over? And how do you pick up the pieces of your life again for the 3rd time? Thankfully, Emmanuel had met with Deji Kurunmi, and the end of his first life led to his new life with Deji as partners and co-founders of Enzo Krypton Company Limited, a management consulting firm. Emmanuel describes Deji as an amazing and upright gentleman.
Amazing gentleman. You cannot be more upright than, he's always upright. At the point when we started, I had to tell him that, you could be at meetings, right? He was so upright, he would disagree with me in front of the client. I'm like, okay, let's go and disagree outside. He was that sincere and honest, of course. I used to joke about that, but that's what that's how upright he is.
Church brought both of them together, and Emmanuel used to tell Deji about his training programs.
So we started talking. I started telling him about my training programs and so he was fascinated by it, and then we used to go to the same church. So he would just, after service, I remember I'll be trying to dodge him because I want to see other people first before he would just be looking for, where's this guy? Come here, let's talk. Can I your idea again? So we're talking. And then we started walking out of Dolphin. Those guys that gave me my first break, I started walking out of the office because I went back to my shell. So they knew I'd hit my rocks. So they just gave me some cover. Come and use the office, come and manage yourself. Build good relationships with them. We now move from client to almost like partners because we're doing different things, pursuing different opportunities together. Cut the story short. So Deji also resigned his job and then he started coming to Dolphin too. He had his own, experiments here and there, consulting. But he was also a very fine gentleman, brilliant chap. He didn't go through the consulting rigor, but he had access to, he was part of the Nexon. I told you there are 2 firms, in my opinion, that were in the middle. After the big 4 years, Nexon and UC. So he was of the Nexon breed because Nexon used to set up a firm that he worked for. They started fintech. Before everybody knew fintech then, they were doing it with microfinance banks and stuff. Brilliant chap, and he did amazingly well there. So we're just meeting, we're working together. He was doing his own business. And so I remember even referring him to the guys upstairs because they wanted a plan and he wrote it for them. But cut the story short, we now got a call from one gentleman. He's currently running a very interesting firm. I don't want to mention him now, but he was starting a firm and his investors were, listen, an ex-bank chief, a very popular ex-bank chief that everybody knows today, among the top 3 banks in Nigeria. The current, one of the chairmen of the telcos, and some other fantastic businessmen were on the board. In fact, one of them is owner of one of the largest insurance companies in Nigeria. They were investors in that company. So he called us that he needed some capacity. So we went in there as interim managers. So we went there with a simple proposal, training. Again, you remember that training thing? I told him, because when I met him, I said, "Oh, guy, you have a problem here. All these people you're hiring up and down, they don't get this thing. This is the cost of work." And I said, "Wow, I love this training. You know what? Come and train my guy." From the training, okay, I need a quick proposal. We did it. This is good. Okay, this your guy understands fintech. And that was it. We got permanent seats there. So our second leg took off. We had a 1-year contract. We earning some decent money to recover. So I was still servicing some of my obligations. But that's how we took off on a different tangent. At that point, I now became acting chief financial officer. And I was sitting in the boardroom. And now my story has started with these men I mentioned. I don't want to call their names here. In fact, there was a day, one of them, I'm talking about like he just left the bank as the CEO after building and handed over to his friend or his partner. And then he now came and he was now starting this experiment. I remember when he had one staff then. So we used to go in and help with the presentations, rather, with all the stuff. So I was sitting with these guys. This was me now, with all these chairmen I mentioned. Maybe I can tell you their names offline, but these are men you guys are all, revere. I mean, what is not worship, but they employ thousands of Nigerians and they're globally known. So we sat on the table and I was presenting some numbers and he said, "Move forward," like same small table in the side of his office. As I moved forward, I mistakenly stepped on his leg and I said, "I've just stepped on this Nigerian bank." I laughed at it in my heart and I told the joke that I stepped on this massive bank. But the whole idea was, there was value that was coming from what we had already known and had. So that was where we were for about a year and a half before we now left to now formally register this company now that we had now run and start what we're doing. And that was literally the beginning of my second life, which since then, it's been a very amazing journey.
How many years ago was that when you started?
So my first life ended in 2014. Between 2014. Then I now started the relationship with this gentleman, with my partner. Now we're just like friends working together out of an office. We are not formally starting our partnership, even though we're collecting our checks in the name of Conceptual. But so we were just taking like salary because we're interim managers. I was CFO, he was CMO, chief marketing officer, or acting chief marketing. So or something like that. Cut the story short, 2016, we now decided, let's sit down, let's register a company. This relationship has been good. We seem to be going and getting along. We share the same values. Let's do this. So we became partners and registered the business. And that's how we started.
And since then, how is it then?
So amazing. And I'll tell you in a nutshell. So here are some of the people. Now, both of us, if I say speak for myself, is either we were both in the meeting or I went or he had his own seminar meeting. But for me specifically, the people that we currently advise, and I'll tell you the connection between that and the real origin story, because I've not even gotten into the thing I really would love to discuss, is from ex-governors to ex-Senate presidents to serving and past commissioners. Those ones are we hang out literally, to ex-bank chiefs, excluding the ones I mentioned. And when I gave a joke, I said I stepped on his foot. I stepped on the entire bank. Anyway, the CEOs of some of these great companies and you guys all celebrate. Like I tell you, they come to us like Nicodemus in the night. They have thousands of followers and social media. Now, we're not saying that because we're beefy, no. We're saying that because we see ourselves like wholesale celebrities. They are retail celebrities. So retail celebrities are folks that have thousands of followers, 2,000, 200,000. Everybody's always going, when they put out a post, the whole world wants to come crashing. But there are real challenges, which nobody is really talking about, is the challenge of people. These guys don't have middle managers. So if you can imagine all the people I've mentioned, you would think that for that kind of level, they shouldn't be talking to us. They should have people they work with that they can call upon. But that's not the reality. Some things as basic as pitch decks to proposals to business plans to complicated things as I don't know what to do, please tell me what to do. Some of them even include ex-ministers, like petroleum ministers and what have you. These are the people we sit down in private sessions and they come and say, come, This is what we're trying to do. How can you advise us? And that's what we're doing. And guess what, Shay? What I want to do is I want to replicate, well, I'm speaking myself because my partner is fully pushing me into this, replicate myself. So I'm using myself again because it's my story I'm telling, but he's the same thing. He has the same substance, even more in some areas. Replicate us in the Nigerian market. That's what Nigeria needs now. Nobody is telling you guys that have the opportunity to own the media space that there's a human capital crisis. I have Nigerian celebrities, some of them, like very popular celebrities, switch on your TV, they'll likely see them. We are advising them. And we know where they have challenges. It's people. They can't trust employees to write stuff like emails and go to sleep. No. I'll tell you some story. There's a lady. She's a celebrity. I mean, she's amazing. She's won awards. Amazing lady. She has amazing dreams. But you know her problem? She doesn't have anybody to even write for her. She will call me and say, Mano, can I just get someone you can just train, And I'm just looking. Of course, now I've had to give her a more sustainable solution because she's really an amazing person for what she's done for her short life. Done movies on Netflix, among other things. But you know what she did? At the time, she also started this journey and she fired everybody. She said, Emmanuel, I was doing all the work. I hired people, I was paying salaries, but I was just still doing the work. So I decided to fire everybody. Now, this concept of fire everybody is not a joke. I'll tell you 2 or 3 other people that had the same story. It's a very common story in Nigeria that people don't talk about. There's another gentleman, this one was doing gas. Brilliant chap, young man. If you hear him speak, you fall off your chair. You fall off your chair. This guy was doing some amazing stuff in gas. He had just had employees. So, he just told me, so a few weeks ago, he called me because I wrote an article called The Federal Republic of Incompetent People. And I'll tell you about that later. And he called me and said, man, I read the article. And I was shocked because he was in UK during this COVID. And he was laughing because he's not someone that he calls me when he's a big boy. He called me and said, man, I read your article and I was just laughing, man. I think it was brilliant and it was spot on and blah, blah, blah. He now said something. He said, I fired everybody. I said, what? All those people said, I fired them. He said, I was doing all the work. And I was like, okay. So that is the challenge in the market. But people don't know. And why we've not done well in Nigeria is that we have a way of, and it's part of the religious mindset because of faith and without work that is dead. We usually have a way of painting, making everything look rosy and good, and deceiving ourselves that all is well. So yes, we'll come and sing and shout hallelujah, but a lot of us are applying for Canada. We don't believe in the system that we're hoping to be blessed by. So it's the word is not hypocritical, but it doesn't add up. So that is the reality. So if you come, people tell you they got testimony, they got a billionaire contract, they won't tell you that they don't have people to execute those contracts. Or that they have to pay 50% to some civil servant to get the contract. They don't tell you that side of the story. What they just tell you that, this guy is doing so well. But when we sit down with these guys, we see the real issues. That's why I said we are like wholesale celebrities, because they come to us at night and say, oh, man, this is how it is. I remember one that called me. This was a very distinguished one that's run a business for 20 years. She was weeping on the phone. Listen, weeping. Emmanuel, they want to kill me. These people want to kill me because it's a joke. That is the reality in the workplace. So when I get into the workplace and I'm meeting people, I want to sit down in board meetings. And now the danger is this. A lot of people now don't even know that they're ignorant. And that's where it has become a problem. So the incompetence is becoming transgenerational. I'll tell you a story. When I wrote that article, another guy called me. This is a brilliant job. This guy sits on a fund that cannot be less than maybe $5 million that he started from scratch. We started our careers together. This guy called me. I said, man, I read the article. In fact, I'm so impressed. He now told me something. He said his wife is a doctor and that he understood the article so well because his wife is telling him now that she's being trained. She's doing her housemanship. No, not housemanship. That thing that you do, residency. That she's doing it, and that the problem is that his wife is telling him that the incompetence is now becoming generational. So incompetent doctors are teaching her. And she knows that this thing you're doing is not correct. And she's stuck. And she's like, Emmanuel, we're now raising a transgenerational level of incompetence. So he told me something. He said, Emmanuel, what people don't realize is that training is so key that even stuff as basic as how to staple. When you print a deck for a client, because you work in KPMG, there's a way they teach you how to staple. He says, dude, I have to teach my guys this. Why do we go to university and spend 4 years, yeah? It's a nightmare. Now, if I go on to the ones that we hired, sometimes our clients will tell us upfront, please, I want a Mexican, they'll specify an Indian, a Chinese, they'll specify. I remember this particular one. This one is even shocking. He works in government. And this is the last one before I tell you further other stories, just to buttress my point on the crisis that people don't want to talk about. So we have these amazing visionaries that we're all celebrating. But the visionaries are not opening their mouths to tell you guys that there's crisis in the house. Of course, we benefited from the crisis because they now hire consultants to do the job that you should have paid people that they are paying salaries to do. But we know that that's not sustainable for us. We need to raise a generation of middle managers in Nigeria. Just like America. America is one of the greatest economies in the history of the world. Not because it's just, of course, it has its own style, but America is a place of diligence. An average American is a hero. He's there in his corner, but he's doing amazing work. He's not there doing a side job or he's distracted with it's a different business. Nigeria is funny. You don't know your stuff. You still have a side gig. You say you have a side gig. You're distracted. So you lose both ways. And I'll tell you something about the power of focus. But here's my catch here. Let me round off that point. This guy, told us, his wife, transitional incompetence. And it was just a jungle of incompetence. And incompetence really is people not knowing that they're incompetent, problem one. But more importantly, they don't even compensate or make up for or learn from the failure experience. And that is what is really going on in corporate Nigeria. So when these guys specify and say, please get me this particular nationality. So I was talking about this guy. I think I lost my name, but I've gotten it now. The guy is currently a 7 commissioner in a state. Had some family business. He called me and he wanted to hire a general manager. Listen, this is a state. And he said, dude, he didn't even start. He said, please, he listed the countries. Go to Kenya, go to India. Can you imagine that? Think about that. Just think about it for a second, Share. You're not even, so in your whole state, you can't get someone to manage. That's the reality of Nigeria. Now, I didn't feel bad, of course, because I understood his frustration. He said, Emmanuel, we've done this before. Nobody is having that conversation on the human capital crisis. And that's the story of Nigeria. Now, imagine if he hired a Nigerian, maybe even from his state. Guess what? The guy lives there. The guy collects his dollars and he leaves that money in that economy. And that money is the one he used to buy a car for his wife. The guy that the dealer makes money. From there, his wife spends money. That's how the money spreads. But our capital is leaving. So when you go to VI and you see top firms, if you look carefully, and that's what the banks, you think the bank is the best thing that happened to us. But I just told you now that the top 3 biggest banks in South Africa, which is the second largest economy, is bigger than all Nigerian banks combined. Now, of course, South Africa is not black. It's not. Yeah, I get all that story. But that's even a problem because it has a touch of white. That's why it's successful, which you shouldn't be saying. So we have a crisis that nobody is talking about. And that's what gets me upset. Because sometimes I tell them, why are you guys going on shows and telling people all these rules? That's not the issue. The issue is that you guys don't have managers. So everybody is like you. And the funny thing is that most of them are ambitious. They want to build spaceships, but they don't understand physics. They don't have small labs. There are no quality people. So it's a vicious cycle of incompetence. I can tell you more stories. I have these stories every day. They call me, Emmanuel, we need people. We need this. We need that. I just need this kind of person. That's the story. And then we have a generation that is now social media distracted, where they cannot sit down and build the foundation that is required. My grandmother, whose school is CMS Grammar School, is 1939. And she told me when the World War started. It started in 1943 or 44 when Hitler invaded Poland. She told me the story before she died that we were just in the room one day because she was a nurse. She now said, our midwife or chief mistress came and said, hey, guys, Hitler has just invaded Poland. Britain has declared World War II open. You may be called upon to go and serve your country. Please be alert and be prayerful. Sad moment. She told me that story. My grandmother, if you see her letters, if you see the quality of her English, but look at guys that spend 2 million on private university. They cannot write proper sentences. I went to a school. The principal told me that he's correcting the grammar of his teachers. It's not a joke. Dude, it's not a joke. It's a joke now. He said, when your parents are paying 2 million naira, and nobody's having this conversation. He says, I correct, and there are report cards that I have to correct the grammar. That's what the principal is doing, and parents don't know this.
So this retraces the fact of unemployability of Nigerian graduates and youths.
But that's one problem. The ones that now made it through the employment are also ignorant, some of them. Now, not everybody I'm speaking to, don't get me wrong, but the percentage is quite high. Now, most of the chiefs, the leaders in charge, they're okay. But because they are working with blunt knives, the meat can't cut. It will take forever to cut meat. So most times, the ones that can afford to bring expatriates, fine. The one that can avoid expatriates, some of them invest in training. But you're training for another person. And that's what level the market, by making the training ubiquitous. And that's our current project, to make this knowledge democratized. So, excuse me. The issue is that there's now a workforce that got in there. There was a knowledge economy switch that people didn't see. When Obasanjo started deregulating, when the banks took off, consulting firms also took off. Then SMEs started to blow. Most of our parents, I don't know, what generation you belong to, respectfully speaking, but most of our parents were all in civil service. Was it like military, NITEL, NEPA, NNPC, NTA? That was where everybody was. Very few people tried business, and most of the business were contractors or traders. So when the knowledge economy started in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was no proper, just a very few set of people, maybe the banks, that now invested in training, which in itself is a problem because you can't go and read banking and finance, come out And you need 6 months training before you become qualified. That's the problem. So the university needs to have a handshake with the corporate world. But that's a different conversation, and we're also working on that. But here's the catch. That nobody paid attention to that learning. My dad went to Nitel Training School. He's now DBN it's called D something in Oshodi. It's a media something, digital something in Oshodi Kappa. That's where he went. When they were there, they trained them specifically. Training was perfect for what you were going to come out with. So they were even very useful, they were relevant. Now think about a small guy that just started a business, who now hires some university students. Question, is he going to spend his time trying to scale his business or training some rookie? Think about it. So you know what he's going to do? He's going to be caught in between the two. So sometimes the relationship doesn't end well because the incompetence of the individual that he's trying to work with, especially if the person doesn't have a good attitude, will now become combustible. You know, that whole thing becomes a combustible. So that's why relationships fall apart. But the reality is that we have graduates that are coming out that they don't know their stuff. They don't even understand how to write emails. Meanwhile, I hope you know email writing is simple comprehension and composition. Composition, remember letter writing? Dear
Yes,
sir,
I do.
at that time, with the subject, the teaching with the header subject, it's still the same concept. That's it. And I want to tell you about foundational stuff, which is one of my areas of focus. I focus on foundation. If you go to my library, you're not going to see books like from third world to first world. I'm reading Nigerian mathematics, SS1, SS2, SS3, writer grammar. That's the stuff I used to cook the curriculum that I said Nigeria needs now. So
Are you serious?
A lot of us ran through secondary school. Yes. And that's what I use in the boardroom. That's what I use for some of the execs. They don't know that's what I use. But I'll tell you, can I give you 2 examples?
Yes, please.
Let me tell you 2 examples. So listen to this question. Which would be the typical challenge of an entrepreneur in Nigeria? So the entrepreneur goes to a supplier, maybe in Dubai, and he buys some goods. Now he buys the goods on credit because he has built a good relationship. He comes to Nigeria and sells the goods. When he sells the goods, or he makes a small deposit, so he doesn't pay in full. So he pays 50%, let's say $50,000. Now when he sells the goods, he completes the payment and gives the supplier the $100,000 and then takes another set. So imagine that relationship. Now, the supplier tells him in Dubai that come, you know what? If you can give me full payment up front, $100,000, I'll sell you to at $95,000. I'll give you a $5,000 discount. So this guy now thinks, okay, no, let me go and borrow money from a bank. If I borrow money from a bank, I would take the money, pay down on the money so I can get the $5,000 discount, $5,000 discount. Then I will now use the profit I will make because I now got more profits because I got a discount. I will now pay the loan and at the same time make more profit than I would have had, or had more profit than I would have had if I had just been doing the regular stuff. Do you understand the arithmetic there?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Essentially, if you can pay in full, you get a discount. He's currently buying at a percentage of the goods on credit. So he says he'll go and borrow money from a bank at an interest rate that will pay him if he gets discount so that he can make profit. That's the summary.
Yes, I got it.
Now you see this simple analysis. Guess what? Is an SS1 Nigerian mathematics why question. This is the decision that some entrepreneurs are making. But imagine, look at it's a question. I'll show you. I'll tell you the page later. I'll look for it again and show you. It's a question of variety. This is arithmetic. Let me help you. You know sets in mathematics. Universal set A, set
yes,
B, set C, and the set intersects. That's what you can use for market sizing. So you want to size a market, and you want the market size between men, women, and children. Three subsets. The universe is the population. So there will be an intersection of the products that all 3 consume, maybe some grocery item. But there are things that only men consume, women. So imagine you sit down, you're doing market size or you're segmenting your products. It's Nigerian mathematics. That is where we missed it. Now it sounds where is this guy from? What's he talking about? Are you for real? But dude, that is what is the problem in the workplace. This level of rigorous analysis and thinking is missing. Let me give you one more. We're writing the business plan for the biggest fish farm in Nigeria. And at the point, we were trying to calculate the efficiency of the production process. So we wanted to calculate the area or the population density of the fish that is optimal to give the highest result. Because if the fish are too overpopulated, then they will die off and they will cannibalism and all that. And then also if you under stuff the what are they calling? I've forgotten. They're called holes. The way you put the fish. If you underpopulate them, you will not also get maximum profit. So guess what? Nigerian mathematics teaches you how to calculate the population density. Of course, by calculating the area of the shape and then doing some other mathematics based on the length and the width of the fish when they go to the highest. That was the analysis we were doing in the boardroom. was the largest fish farm in Nigeria. So you can imagine someone leaving secondary school or university coming with that knowledge and sitting in the boardroom and helping. So there was a depth we missed, most of us, in secondary school. And you know the funny thing, the foreigners and expatriates are too polite. They won't tell us because some of us were employing them. But they'll tell you their faces, Nigerians, we're not deep, we're wide. Everything a lot, big this, big that, but it's depth. It's not deep. I went to one of the most successful, most respected educationists, and she told me, Emmanuel, you're building a school in Nigeria. If you don't put a white man's face as your principal, you're not going to get any decent school fees. It's embarrassing. These are conversations we cannot have publicly, but that's the reality of what our country has become. So even the parents are also deceived. And guess what? Some of the so-called white principals they bring is the least of them. I'm sorry to say this, but we don't know this. We're just deceived. We don't believe in the competence of our system, which is true. I mean, you call a plumber, you're already negotiating, you're like, okay, 5 days is 5 days, because you know he's going to default. And in default, he still wants his balance. He's not able to compensate for it. He can't. Welcome to the Republic.
Interesting. And that's the problem that you and your partner are trying to fix today.
Yes. So we want to democratize this knowledge and start a revolution of competence so that Nigeria one day can become a competent nation. We can build stuff for ourselves. We can make simple equipment, farm implements, fabricators, drying machines. You go to Futa, work with those boys, let them be inspired to know they can create something. That's what we want to do. Let's build a culture of competence. I mean, I don't want to bore you. The word is not bore, but I have done a lot in consulting, like projects, memos to governors, presidents, minister. I mean, most of this stuff we are privileged to be the ones to sign off on by the grace of God. And
how does it happen? Do you just reach out to them out of the blues, or there's someone who connects you, or you build networks? Or how does it happen?
We've been so blessed that we've not had to sell aggressively, and that for me is the testimony of what I'm preaching, because I always believe a good product should sell itself. So we've constantly received, it's just calls. We did one for work for someone, the person refers. Most of our clients, I have what I call client champions. They are just about 5 or 6, and they come in seasons where they will just come and they will just recommend the next line. This one will bring this one, bring that. That's how it is. I've never stood up to say I'm going to pitch. In fact, I can count the number of times we bidded for anything. Most times it's on
referrals.
Since the time I left UC.
Okay.
So it has even made me borderline arrogant. So I have to be careful.
Interesting. We've just heard from Emmanuel on the human development crisis he believes is crippling the Nigerian market. But what are the key skills lacking that every young person should have, which Emmanuel is now planning to democratize?
The first thing is what we call the thinking caps. The thinking caps include the following: critical, analytical thinking, and problem solving. And these are very popular things. You know what this is talking about. Don't worry, I'll tell you. Number 2 is business and external environmental analysis. Business and external environment. That's where you do your market assessment. So things around market sizing, market segmentation, competitive landscape, market structure, quarters 5, around every industry. That's where it happens. And then the business one is mostly on current state. I've been able to analyze the business properly, its model, and how it's designed to make money. The third point is business planning and project management. It's very popular. Now, it's a broad term, but it covers everything, including your pitch deck and what have you. But more important is around how the business is organized, from business description to go-to-market plan, to product and service offering, to financials, to implementation plan, to operational plan, to exit plan. Those are key in business plan. And you know why this is important? Even if you're running a church, you still can borrow from the framework of the business plan to organize what you're trying to do. Number 4 is the use of business tools. Now, they're digital tools, most of them, and you know the popular ones, the spreadsheets, the presentation, whether it's Google Docs or Microsoft. Those ones are very important. But now social media is also coming in, and then other work tools around cloud, productivity tools. Those ones are also important, but they're important because they're all part of the foundational design of how businesses, or rather how businesses get stuff done. The 5th one, and one of the most important, is business communication and documentation. Anybody's career is tied to their ability to write. If you're in the knowledge space, by the way, if you're not a programmer or any of those things, if you are in the knowledge business, which most of us are in, you have to be able to write. and communicate. So, and the writing has 3 parts. We have basic English, which I've had to get textbooks, like I told you, secondary school textbooks to teach people in the boardroom. And then we now have structure in thinking and writing, which was proposed by Barbara Minto. I think she's working at McKinsey then, where she wrote the book. It's called The Pyramid Principle. And then the third one is now the business writing itself, whether it's email, proposals. Proposals is one of our money spinners. I mean, you don't want to know how much they come and they want to pay for proposal. It's just the same thing every time. And it's very simple. Most of them have employees, but they can't write it. So it's a unique skill. It also has an element of an art in it. The 6th one is personal and team effectiveness, and all the things around, attitude, self-awareness, self-effectiveness, how you organize yourself, organize your time, prioritize. Prioritization is extremely important. And most people are building in their career, not because they do so much work, but they know how to prioritize the most difficult work, which is the most important work. Hard work is not working late. Hard work is taking on the most difficult task and completing it. That's what makes you exceptional. And then the last skill set is what we call, now this is very popular in theory, it's called PESTLE, but it has deep dynamic applications. And I'll tell you, political, economic, legal, environmental, and social. So let me give you an example of political. So here's a Chinese company that wants to invest in a Nigerian firm, and it's just the 3rd year into an administration. And then they call a consultant like us, please, can you come and do a political analysis for us to tell us whether we should make this investment? So I will now do an analysis and say, hey, APC governors always perform and they are always re-elected. Major premise. Minor premise, Sanwo-Olu is an APC governor. Conclusion, Sanwo-Olu will be re-elected. That's logic in thinking and writing, or logic, but you can see the connection to the political analysis. So but I'm not going to say it like the way I said it. It may come out in 50 pages with different analysis, checking on different things. So that's how we do stuff to convince people or to advise companies. So these are the 7 summarized skill sets. Now, some of them are popular, you've heard them before, but they were not born because I sat down and I researched them. They're things that I do every day to have gotten to where I am. And they are the fabric of my knowledge, my skill, and my work ethic. So that's what I have now said we need to democratize. Now, guess what, Cher? Once anybody has these skill sets, you can build your skyscrapers on it. So most times the problem is that a lot of people have incomplete versions of this. So depending on which one they have related to what they do, they can escape. But for most, they cannot rise beyond a certain point because they lack these skill sets. And that is what is missing in the workplace. And that's what is frustrating business owners.
In just a moment, we'll talk about the key lessons Emmanuel learned in the course of his journey, as well as the habits and practices that helped him get to where he is today. Stay with us. I'm Ushaya, and you're listening to Origins Africa podcast. Hi, dear listener. If you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes and Apple Podcast. You can also send us a tweet or comment on Instagram at OriginsAF. We love to read from you. Nopes, not later. Yes, I read your mind. Do it now. Thanks a lot. Also click the subscribe button and share with a friend. Let's make a difference together, one origin story at a time. Hi, welcome back to Origins Africa podcast. Looking back through the years, Emmanuel says the greatest lesson he's learned is the story of competence, which is what he's preaching now.
Competence is a science and an art. In America, you can have what you call a blood splatter expert. Now, this person can be called upon at a crime scene to analyze the pattern of the blood that was splashed. And when they look, they will tell you who killed this person, why the person was killed, and when this happened. Who likely killed this person. The idea is that that's competence for me. When you understand the expertise of what you're doing to the point where you begin to theorize, like you begin to create and prove laws around the concept of what you know. So my going back to secondary school, economics, mathematics, English books, is that I went back to the foundation to understand where demand and supply was first analyzed and realized, to when Adam Smith and all these other guys figured it out, to the history behind it, so that when I now want to use it in the boardroom, I can recreate it in a different light because I understand the foundation. Do you understand what I just said, sir?
Yes, I do.
That's number one. So I understand the value of the fundamentals. All this space shit that we celebrated Elon Musk still began with basic physics. But you know what we have in Nigeria? A lot of entrepreneurs want to build spaceships, but the basic physics is missing. The mechanics working on the engine are not even supposed to be, they're not qualified. And that's why we'll continue to struggle until we solve this problem of incompetence. So that's my number one lesson. Go back to the basics. Number two is the power of work ethic. You must put attitude before reward. Do you have a lot of people saying, it's not my father's company, I cannot kill myself, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not the attitude. Or how much are they paying me? See, put experience before reward. In fact, that's a quote from Deji. You understand? Put experience before reward. And then eventually the reward will come.
When was that moment you felt you got validation that you were on the right track, or this is something that you were supposed to do, where you got like a validation or an assurance?
Well, I mean, right from Chukwuka's time, when we started to walk into boardrooms and meet very important people, like very important people that we all know today. And when we sit down with them, we see what they're doing outside, making, gathering a lot of crowds, doing a lot of exciting things. But when they come to us, they're telling us their weakest moments, they're telling us their issues, they're telling us all the problems they have, and we are supposed to be the ones to solve it. I said, this looks like something I can do, because consulting is very inelastic. You can be advising the president. I mean, I've written manifestos for senatorial candidates. I've written manifestos for governorship candidates. Can you imagine that we sit down, okay, let's do your strategy. How do you get, what's your target job? All the analysis, I've done it. So that's what, that for me is it's a huge privilege. It's a very elite and distinguished noble career, I must say.
Okay. What are your fears and insecurities today?
This will sound very patriotic, but I'm worried about Nigeria. That's what keeps me awake at night. I'm worried that we're trying to be on the path, and I respect what the president and the CBN governor is doing around Greek, but I'm really worried about the vicious cycle that we're in. I mean, I'm sure you're following some of the news and some of the stuff that are going on. Because of the privilege of my role, I also see how much is being mishandled in some places. And I know that, man, this thing doesn't add up. So I'm worried that we're eating the future of our kids. Nigeria is getting extremely leveraged. So, and you guys should be careful. You pay attention to entrepreneurs. A lot of them are having private sessions with them, and a lot of them are giving up on Nigeria privately, but they're not saying it. And I feel that's hypocritical, and they should say it. Sorry, I'm getting a bit activist here. Or a bit of an activist here, but that's the truth. We're saying a lot is going to Nigeria, and it's exciting, the next big thing, but hey, there are things on that. Some of them are pulling out their assets. I have a client who told me he was selling his Banana Island land. He's like, hey, I've given up. I don't think this is going to work, and I don't want to be here to find out. I mean, when the dollar was devalued again. So I'm really worried about Nigeria being on. Now, it's supposed to be on the right path, but there are one or two things that are just not aligned, and I can't go into that because that's not the purpose of this show. So that's one of my greatest concerns. You can see how many Nigerians are tripping together. So I'm worried about Nigeria. That's my fear.
What are you insecure about?
I'm afraid of the distractions. So one of the biggest challenges of an entrepreneur is to be distracted. So my clients sometimes, because of the pressure, everybody wants your attention, everybody wants to work with you. You're distracted. The key thing you want to do that will scale and will make everybody a billionaire, which is this thing I'm telling you about, this whole democratizing this knowledge, driving through technology and so on. That is what I want to do. But I've not been giving it attention. So I'm worried that, hey, guy, you need to slow down on all these advice and go and give that thing some attention. But you also need to survive. So that's the balance, so that's my fear, that I don't end up doing it, because I've been at it for almost 12 years now.
Oh, okay. What are some of your blind sides?
Good question. I have a bit of extremes. So all my life, I've been advisory. So I haven't done a lot of, I'm being frank. Of course, I've done some implementation, but I've not done a lot of execution. I've done some, some of them went well, but in advisory, you're largely in advisory. So it's now that we're pivoting to a bit of execution. So that was the blind side I'm trying to cover. And the world is also evolving. Clients want more than documents. They now want to see something more agile. They want a longer term relationship. And it will pay more. The experience will pay more than, because by the time you transform an organization, You don't need to put any adverts. The next one will call you. At that point, you can call any price, even equity. So the blind side was poor. Lack of enough experience in execution. All your life, you've been planning, strategizing, advising. The client goes to execute. Once in a while, you help with execution.
So you may not be as good with execution as you are with advising or planning.
I haven't seen my limits in execution. That's what I like to say. Now, I don't think I'm going to fail at execution, because if you read my story from the beginning, or as I told you, then you can understand that it's the same attitude to life. So I don't expect to fail at execution, but execution takes time. And considering my age and what I want to do now, I would like to execute something I have full stake in. That's where I am in my career now. So that's hence this democratize project. Democratize knowledge or competence rather.
Okay.
The point is, I haven't seen the limits. I haven't seen the limits of my capabilities in execution. So I want to know so that I can patch up quickly.
You had mentioned at the beginning that there were some other things that you've done that you're not exactly proud of. So what are some of those things?
Well, some of them may be around my management style. Maybe people I should have treated better. Number two, I told you that in my
Could you expatiate? Sorry.
So I was very impatient. Maybe I was a bit biased. So it was a time that I was too biased to foreign education. So maybe I despised some of the local graduates. So when I had a choice to pick, I picked the foreign, because I just felt, you know what, at least they can write. They won't give me grammatical errors. At least I can train them on other things. But that writing problem, So once I know the particular gentleman that I wasn't fair to. I didn't carry him along, So and then also I forget easily because I'm very busy. So sometimes people reach out, I can't reach back because, hey, dude, I have a lot of things to get done. I'll get done. So not being able to manage those moments may make some people feel, hey, what's it feeling like? An example I gave you too. And of course, the other one is my financial challenges I had. There are people that, I didn't manage they lent me money in good faith and I defaulted. And, now we're not friends because of that. We're all as close as we used to be. And that's something that's the worries in my sleep. And I still hope to do something for them, surprisingly, But that's a confession I have to make publicly.
Okay.
As a business owner. And a lot of business owners have these challenges, but I'm willing to say my own. Some will just forget and move on. But frankly speaking, in my first life, I made that error.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. You also mentioned at the beginning that there was some crisis you had between motivational speaking and your faith. Have you been able to resolve that now?
Very good question. So let me tell you, it's not only for me, it's for a lot of people. There's this message of grace, just trust God and plunge. So you have people who are not competent, but they are believing God for miracles and breakthroughs. But what I've come to a conclusion is there's a balance. And the balance is this. You need to be competent overall. Now, when you get to a certain point, grace will open doors for you. So grace, for instance, to be at the right place at the right time. You heard the popular story of the unfortunate incident that somebody was killed. That one now is beyond being competent. You understand? You're a chief exec or whatever, but you're just unlucky. That's what has some people, how can you just, for all you care, maybe somebody would have come that day and the guy would not have been able to carry on the act. So that's what grace should do. But grace should never substitute hard work. And we have a country now that is so religious that they are now, they want everything to happen supernaturally. Nobody wants to put in the difficult work. And even when they are putting in the work, this is where it's important, Shay, they are putting in the wrong work. So they're reading the wrong books. So you read a book like An Enemy Called Average. To be frank with you, or something leadership, or something pleasing people, Now, there's nothing wrong with those things in theory. But question, you are just a fresh graduate. You're not even ready to be a team lead. Why are you reading stuff on leadership? Why not go and read Nigerian mathematics, like Emmanuel is saying, and understand this simple arithmetic, compound interest, and so on? Why not go and read basic English and fix your email writing? That's what young people don't know. And the danger, we're now flooded with too much knowledge. There's too much information out there. And now there's a webinar craze because there's COVID. Everybody's doing webinar. So the problem, young people are now inundated with knowledge. So when the real knowledge, when the likes of, respectfully speaking, and this is, forgive me, this will sound modest, Emmanuel Tarfa now says, I want to talk to you and tell you what will save your life. They won't listen to Emmanuel because they have been fagged out by listening to all other people teaching them soft stuff, respectfully speaking. I'm not saying Emmanuel is the only one who has knowledge, but there are very few of us that understand that this is the problem. And we're not speaking because we are trying to theorize, we're speaking because that's what we're doing every day. When people call me, it's the same story. I mean, I go for meetings and instantly the client will sign the check. You know, those kind of breakthroughs. You finish, the client says, I don't even want you to start. Just take, go and start the work. He's so confident. He's not asking for references or for company profile. He's signing off the project because he's convinced of what he's heard. That's the value we want to sell to the market. But these guys are now distracted, consuming stuff that some other people who are trying to build a social media profile are selling. So for me, it worries me because we're not able to transfer that knowledge to the people who need it. And I think that's really it for me. I don't know if I answered the question. I went off.
So motivational speaking, so to say, overemphasizes maybe magic or the supernatural over hard work?
No, motivational speaking is even fair. The one that I struggled with lately was the grace message and breakthrough and how everything's going to happen. Now you need that because sometimes it's beyond you. It's nepotism. You live in a country where there are no rules, so you need grace to survive. But guess what, guy? You still need to be able to deliver when they hire you. But we have a bunch of people now who get hired, and most times they don't come back and tell us that the testimony did not finish, or I was fired, or I was told to leave, or I'm struggling at my work because I'm not meeting my target. My boss is frustrated. I'm not helping. I'm just kissing ass in the office. I'm not getting work done. We don't hear that part of the story. Because most of the time we're sitting in the boardroom and we're hearing CEOs screaming on their people. I'm like, look at this man. He's a married man with children. His wife thinks he went to work today. They don't know that I just shredded him in the office because he's not doing his work. And meanwhile, he's chasing one MBA program in one Nigerian university, respectfully speaking. I'm like, why are you distracted? Can you sit down and learn what you're doing first? And I think that's the message. Focus on the fundamentals. I don't have any degree beyond my university degree, but I've taught people who have gone to INSEAD and some other universities. Sit down, come, you don't understand financial model, come, sit down, let me explain to you. And I walk them through the thinking. I said, I don't know whether they were distracted or what they were doing. So I'm even worried that, and I'm not putting down INSEAD, don't get me wrong. Maybe that particular individual was the problem. But my point was they went to Ivy League and they still come back to us and we still have to put them through. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding. Not one, not twice. Not one person, two different people.
Okay. Got it. Do you have your second degree or MBA, by the way, or it's just your first degree?
So when it's time to go and relax, when I'm finished building, and by the way, I want to be invited for the MBA based on my accomplishments. So it's probably be a scholarship or still highly subsidized. I want to accomplish. I don't want to beg to apply. Let them say, come, please, we've seen your profile. I think you're doing amazing work. You'll be a great member of this classroom. Come and join us. I believe in stuff like that. And that extreme diligence and competence. When you really, really excel. You can imagine Bill Gates saying he wants to do MBA. Think about it. Do you think anyone is asking to pay money? Wouldn't you want to be in his classroom? In fact, his classroom, the applications that year will soar because of that. And that's the principle I want to stand by. I want the substance to catch up with reality so that there's an overflow. It sounds very ambitious, but I want to go to, I'm still fluctuating Oxford, maybe London Business School, also that one, INSEAD itself, because I like France. I like the chateaus and all the countryside, south of France and so on. So yes, maybe Harvard just for the name, but eventually I would pursue it once it's time to catch my breath. But now I'm still building. I need to get that done.
Okay. What has been most helpful for you on your journey?
A lot actually, but everybody I've mentioned, including my family, both immediate, my wife, my children were inspiring me and being very supportive through and being patient with me through my because as a consultant, they're very busy. This COVID period, my children haven't seen more of me than when it was work. I'm still very busy. That's the point. So that's one that you need that balance and that stability. But more importantly, and of course, my parents and my siblings. My siblings are very supportive. My sister, my brothers are my cheerleaders. My sister is, at my point, she was bankrolling me when I was still 7 and we're broke. We're always broke. Send money when your salary can't pay. So those things were very helpful. Of course, Chukwuka, who I owe everything I am today professionally to. Delo Shumakinde, pastor. I don't know if he wants to be addressed that way, but he also he taught me character and diligence. So because Chukwuka was impressed with my so-called inverted commas because it's loyalty, but I learned it from Delo Shumakinde. He trained me. Let's do this, let's do that, and there's no money in front. Just go and do it. So that was very helpful. Then of course my partner now, who are running this firm together, and the amazing team that we have at Enzo Krypton. We have not quite a lot of people. We have some people actually, a sizable number, and we're doing great work and all the clients we advise and all the clients that believed in us and gave us chances. Some of them are mentioned. Some of them cannot mention because they may not want to be identified yet. But they know themselves and they know the amazing work we're doing together.
What do you wish you had known when you were starting now?
Man, I wish I had a mentor. I mean, I'll tell you for free. Someone who mentored me on financial management, all the monies I was making and the hiring I was doing, he would have properly guided me. You know, that would have been important. I would have been richer for it now. I would have probably managed relationships. But you know the problem, and let me tell you something dangerous. Most times there's nothing you can do because you haven't popped with respect to that. So you have to get burnt first and almost literally die before you now learn. That's how some people learn. There's nothing you can do. It's like people that are already in love and you're telling them that, come, there's a problem in this marriage or there's going to be a problem in your mind. They can't hear you because they're already in love. They're stuck. So you have to bring that the love is blind. That's what it means. Your eyes are, you can't see anything. But it's the same thing. You're just driven by ambition. You know, I was very bold then. I mean, I was negotiating house in PI to leave when I get married. I was doing some crazy stuff because I was saving money. You know, but I didn't know that that's business money. That's not your money. You know, so if I had a mentor who had guided me, and I didn't even know I needed a mentor. So it is a very funny situation when you don't know. It's a dangerous point to be. A dangerous point. But I think it was probably what stuff I had to go through because what I've become now, I've become more mature, become more discerning, and I can smell fish. And a lot of other things, when I say fish, I can smell falsehood because I understand the tricks. You know, not that I was false myself, but I knew how things, you know, and that's what life does. If you pay attention to it, it teaches you, weaves you carefully. And then you can now become, and I'm still on my journey. I haven't cracked it, don't worry. And I'm not feeling like I've accomplished yet. But I'm just saying that at this point of my journey,
Sure.
You know, this is what I know. So there are still some lessons I may come back in future and tell you guys. But for now, the one that has paid my bills to this point, that has worked, is what I'm sharing.
Okay. What habits or practices do you observe that have been instrumental to your success?
Fantastic question. Let me tell you one very powerful principle. One of the things that helped me, most of my clients are people that have libraries. One of them in particular who's very close to me, who became like a friend, like a father figure. You know, he has like 2 libraries in his house. He's read books, but he finds me as one of the most intelligent people. And at the time I met him, I had not read a book in my life from cover to cover. So how was I intelligent and impressing people in the world? I was even shocked because when I left UC, people started saying that this guy is really smart, you're really smart. Do you know what made me smart? It's CNN. I remember from the first client I heard, like, okay, surprising, interesting. So I didn't know how much CNN had changed me. Let me give you this powerful secret, and it's to young people. Now, one of the advice I'll give young people is try and keep your sources few, but be consistent. The name of the game is consistency, not volume, or consistency. So I will sit down on CNN, and you know the amazing thing about CNN people don't know, especially when you watch stuff like Richard Quest. CNN will bring you the president or the managing director of World Bank or IMF. Now listen to this, share. Nigerians like this. They prefer this option. They like law. They don't like grace. You would say, oh, the IMF boss is Nigeria. Free talk, 100,000 naira or 500,000 naira for CEOs. You see them, they rush. They're feeling big, but I'm going for it. Of course, they network, which is great and it's good for that. But they're like, why are you rushing to go and listen to the guy? The guy is on CNN free of charge. And when he's talking, I'm paying attention. Now, this is the IMF boss, and he will throw words. Or let me give you this one. You see an Oxford professor will be brought to give an opinion on a global issue. Now, I have not been to Oxford. I can't even afford to go to Oxford now. But guess what? He's on TV and he's talking. That's the Oxford prof. Would you listen? So I was very careful, and I was consuming this content carefully. And I was seeing the way they construct their sentences, the way they think, their application process, their approach, because they're on CNN. They want to give out their best. So they're going to give you stuff from their lecture notes, clearly. You understand? Free of charge. And people don't know this trick. So when I was consuming a lot of BBC and CNN, and I was beginning to think like not only the anchors, but the people they are bringing to speak. So I consume a lot of Farid. And I see the way he lays his arguments and the way they throw in their jokes. And even the movies I watched were carefully crafted to reflect what I do. So I don't want to call some names of some some media stations so that they will not, because some of them are there to make money, so that maybe they won't invite me in the future. But the truth is that there are some things I don't watch, but I know what I watch. So I consume those things, and they helped to shape my brain because I wasn't reading. Don't forget, I was dyslexic. So I now suddenly, my brain opened. So I consumed so much CNN that I popped. So at a point, the people that read books, we can have conversations because I'm coming from the position of the author that was on CNN, who probably I haven't met or have not read his book. But I will get the summary and I'll get the trick. So that was one of the ways I began to build my my knowledge base. Now I've started reading. I use audiobooks. So, and I've done quite a lot since then, which is amazing also. I'm learning great stuff. But I realized that, and this is the last point, that you cannot read too many. So what I decided to do was I have to read sometimes. I read a book like 2-3 times. You know why I do that? I do that because most people don't get it from their first read and they don't know. So you have to read it first and second. So I read the history of the world, I know from an Asian perspective. And when I read it, I'm reading it for the second time and I'm seeing the connections of the dots, even to the issues in the Bible. I'm now being rich. So it opens up your mind. But now some people are in a hurry. I want to read 50 books in a year. Well, I don't know who is chasing you. You have your whole life ahead of you. You might as well read it so that you meditate on it. It's not only for the Holy Scriptures. When you meditate, you now become. So when you open your mouth, you sound like Socrates, your generation, because you understand what you're talking about. So that was how I got that trick, that CNN trick. Because they're always bringing in quality people. They don't bring jokers on CNN. They're bringing the best. So it's free MBA. And people don't know. They rather go and listen to some university lecturer who has not managed one business in his life and is saying he's giving them. I don't want to say this because I don't like. I tell people it's a waste of money. Just don't carry certificate. You need. The world is looking for people who can deliver and people who can think.
What would be your advice to listeners?
So if they find my session interesting enough, especially my consideration on human capital, I have said a lot already. But I would just speak to 3 generations. I'll speak to the early people, the freshers, like undergraduates, graduates, and people below 3 years of their professional career. This is everything you heard me say, from my CNN consumption to my basics. If you go back to your fundamentals, like your Nigerian maths, your English, all those things are going to be for granted. I mean, things as chemistry. You go and buy a cream for your baby and you pick the cream and you see that, okay, from chemistry 101, this is a bleaching agent. You can tell, by fundamentals are important. And because we have a poor educational system, my advice is go back to school again and this time make it private. I cannot overemphasize this, but when something's burning in you and you're trying to tell people, but they're not listening, like you feel like a lone voice in the wilderness. What I'm saying is the education system, it failed us. So we have to go back to school. People are reading the wrong thing. People are studying and learning from the wrong places. And the most important thing is your English and your mathematics. It sounds very simplistic, okay? But that's half of the story of the shining I'm doing, is those fundamentals. And I gave you some of the applications already. Those things are loaded because we can write your composition. Your composition is your proposal writing. Comprehension there is also proposal writing, understanding of the client's requirements. That's comprehension right there. When you read comprehension, you now answer back the questions, and the way you craft your sentences, applications, paragraphs, letter writing, that's email writing. And they all have expository essay and all the other essay types that, we're taught. So fix your foundation. When you do it, you can build skyscrapers. I always use this example. Clinton is one of the most brilliant women I know about. And she was a very, fantastic student, and she was a lawyer. Now, when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State to the US, imagine if one very, and I will tell you the example, one funny analyst wrote a speech for which was going to Nigeria, and she picked up the letter and said, wait, for my basic history or my basic government, this thing you sent is not correct. Can you check? She can, because she's sharp and her foundation is solid, she can send back that query. But I don't want to call names, but you know the story of some other first ladies who picked speeches, and because they were not deep, it became a scandal. If it was covered, they were not deep enough. So you need depth, because when you rise, you will need that depth. So people need to understand and fix your foundation, otherwise you're going to fall hard, especially in the future. Then for my study of history, thinkers, Plato, Aristotle, they always had audience with the king. If you have an opportunity, take a career in consulting. It will fix your foundation. Especially when you don't know what to, then go and build skyscrapers on it afterwards. You'll be solid. It's foolproof. That's my advice for the younger ones. For the middle level ones who unfortunately started with patching of different things here and there, quietly, soberly, also take my advice on the other hand. Fix your foundation. Otherwise, you get to a point, you just see that it's like a ceiling. You can't cross. It's not qualifications. It's not certification. I know people promote those things. Respectfully speaking, I took the alternative route. And, it took me to my destination. And the alternative route is self-education. There is more education on YouTube than any university in today's world. If you have YouTube, you don't need to go to university. You'll be fine. And people don't know. They prefer to pay more costs. They don't have that feeling, I paid money. I paid 300,000. Well, if you want to go and spend the money, fine. But all these profs are on YouTube. And you can literally school yourself. No matter the subject, Excel, Word, everything. They even how to make babies. Find it on YouTube. IVF, you see it there. So that's important for people. And of course, for the senior execs, they should invest in training, set up training schools, so that they can have their own history and knowledge. Otherwise, they will never be able to build that spaceship. If you don't have quality people, you can't fly. I have seen this before. I've seen companies that we've been talking for the last 12 years and they haven't gone far because they don't have people. And some have been able to raise money and hire quality people. But even within that quality stuff, just that you cannot get into those details.
How do you unwind?
There's this show on Netflix I like and I enjoy. It's called The World's Most Extraordinary Homes. I want to watch it like 5 or 6 times. I've watched it twice now. And my thinking is this: it was built by some of the most intelligent and the most award-winning architects. So even with my unwinding, it's still strategic. So I'm watching Netflix. I'm carefully picking shows. That even after I play, I can go to work and use it to shine. So that's how I'm not kidding you. It sounds very whatever, but anybody who's serious in life, you have to be that strategic. But some people think it's too serious. No problem, it's your business.
Apart from Netflix, how else do you unwind? What are the fun things you do?
Carefully selected shows on Netflix.
Okay.
So
besides Netflix?
Yeah, I mean, some family time, which I'm learning to be better at it. To be frank with you, I will score myself very low there. And I'm working hard to improve, build bond with your family. And then I'm also a very quiet person. Just say my solitudes, lie down quietly, listen to maybe a sermon or some music, or listen to my audiobooks. I forgot. That's number 2 now, or number 3. Let me give family number 2. Number 3 is audiobooks. So by the way, I gave family number 2 by faith. Audiobooks is actually number 2. So currently, I love my audiobooks. I just listen to my podcast, a bit of CNN here and there. I've reduced my CNN because it has been replaced by audiobooks now. But I still try. So my unwind is still around my future. I can't just be unwind for unwind's sake.
Looking back through your journey, what would you ascribe your success to? Your hard work and skills, or luck?
I mean, I'll substitute the word luck for grace. And grace not because I'm trying to be religious, because it does exist for everybody. And there's people just don't know. And even the successful ones, like they're not atheists, will tell you they call it luck, but it is grace. Because, like I gave example for the situation that happened recently with the guy that was killed by his person. That's just tough. You're just being unlucky, really. You think about it. But all I care, I could have died in any of those my incidents. So anybody could have died. I flew a lot. I traveled north for some projects. I entered the bushes. Went to farms. In feasibility studies. Anything could have happened. And you could have been kidnapped. You could have been killed. Driving with reckless drivers who were probably falling asleep. God saved you from that. So that is there. Let's not deceive ourselves. But on the other side, you have to put in the work. See, I walked though. There are times I did 24 hours. Like I'm talking to you now, started the call at 3 o'clock. The next time I close my mouth, it's 3 a.m. It's 3 o'clock the next day. We've done that. We've done that. Worked late hours, worked till the morning now. We've worked, delivered. We've done that. We also done some errors too, maybe made a mistake here and there and compensated for it, which is what, competence is. Even if you fail, you compensate. So yeah, it's both.
Okay. If you were in my shoes, what would you ask yourself that I've not asked you yet?
You've actually asked me a lot already. You spent a lot on my side stories. But, so, I mean, the whole question would have been more around what the future would look like. Now that you're working on this, what exactly is the goal? And I can answer that. Everything, because I'm at a crossroad. I've had an interesting history, but I'm at a crossroad now that I'm about to build something. I want to replicate myself. And that for me is the gift to my generation. Democratize my knowledge.
Okay, that's great. Final question. Who would you like me to interview next?
The lady I respect, right? I mean, she's also like me. They were all wholesale celebrities. Maybe she's interested in joining. She's a guru in finance. Her name is Mobola. I always forget how to spell her name, but she works for Alifia Capital. She's solid.
That's Emmanuel Tarfa. He's a partner and co-founder at Enzo Krypton Company Limited. Many thanks to Miracle Rush for connecting us with Emmanuel. If you've got someone you believe has a great origin story to tell and you can help with an introduction, please write to us at originsafricapodcast@gmail.com or send us a tweet or DM on Twitter and Instagram at originsaf. Thank you for listening to our show this week. If you liked it, do leave us a review, a comment, and share with your friends. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend and to tell another friend. We would also love to read from you, so please do send us a tweet or leave a comment on Instagram at originsaf. You can also write to us at originsafricapodcast@gmail.com. Remember, do subscribe at wherever you get your podcast: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, amongst others. Join us next time as we have a chat with Kola Aino, the founding partner of Ventures Platform. Our sound producer this week was Tumisha Jani, and the theme song was composed by Just Ritimi. I'm Oshaya, and you've been listening to Origins Africa Podcast. Bye for now.
My father told me life is not a bed of roses. You gotta put your way into the